One.
Welcome. Good afternoon or good morning to those of you in the Points West. My name is Kathleen Carlisle, Mitigation Planner and Policy Advisor at FEMA Headquarters and Project Lead for the State Mitigation Policy Update. I would like to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us. We had originally planned to host these webinars last spring, but postponed them due to the COVID-19 response. We understand that states, local governments, NGOs, businesses, and all of you as individuals have been experiencing and are continuing to experience significant impacts from COVID-19. So we really appreciate your attendance today. My co-presenter is Laura Duff, HQ Mitigation Planner, leading the update process for the local mitigation planning policy. So the purpose of today's webinar is to share information with our state, local government, and other partners related to the upcoming mitigation planning policy update process. We seek your feedback on the current state and local policies, given your experience with these policies over the past several years. Or if you're new to this process, we would like to hear your thoughts and ideas as well. Our goal is to provide fair and consistent guidance to state and FEMA officials responsible for reviewing local mitigation plans, and to provide states and local governments with guidance to help meet the requirements of the Stafford Act. Overall, we hope that our policies and related products will promote the development of effective mitigation strategies that will reduce disaster risk for your states and local communities. So for the webinar today, I will provide a brief overview of the mitigation planning policies, which we frequently refer to as the plan review guides. I will provide some general information about the update process and the state mitigation plan review guide. Then Laura will present information on the local mitigation plan review guide. And finally, we will provide some important information regarding how you can provide feedback. So before we get started, I just would like to turn it over to Jenny Burmester, the Program Manager for the National Mitigation Planning Program, for a few opening remarks.
Thank you, Kathleen. Again, this is Jenny Burmester with FEMA Headquarters with the National Mitigation Planning Program. I'm the Program Manager. And I also wanted to add my welcome to you all today. I'm so glad that you have joined us. And I wanted to just thank you for your interest in mitigation planning and for your time today. I'd also like to thank Kathleen and Laura and our support team for their efforts in preparing for and delivering this series of webinars. With that, let me turn it back over to Kathleen.
Thank you, Jenny. So to begin, we'll have a brief overview of the mitigation planning policies. So here we have images of the policy documents that we frequently refer to as our plan review guides. For those of you who are newer to mitigation planning, the mitigation planning policies are FEMA's official interpretation of the Code of Federal Regulations at 44 CFR Part 201. And specifically, Section 201.4 refers to the standard state regulations, and 201.5 the state enhanced regulations. The enhanced regulations are optional for states that would like to go above and beyond the standard requirements and provide an opportunity for increased HMGP funding, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. And 44 CFR 201.6 is where the regulations are for the local policy. Tribal regulations are in 201.7. The regulations at 201.5 are the basis for the tribal enhanced requirements. The tribal guide, by the way, was updated in 2017. So I want to talk about why we are updating these policies. FEMA requires that our policies be reviewed and, if necessary, updated every 4 years. And so obviously we can't always stick perfectly to that timeline, but that's our goal. We need to remain current with legislative and regulatory changes. For example, many of you might be familiar with the new Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, which is just now just ready to roll out. This opportunity became available through the passage of the Disaster Recovery and Reform Act in 2018, and will provide some expanded opportunities for mitigation funding. And just to put in a plug, there are BRIC webinars taking place on Wednesdays this month, and if you aren't able to register or get into the webinar, they will be recorded. So I really encourage you to watch these webinars and become familiar with this program. So obviously our plans, our planning policies will need to be consistent with the BRIC program. And also other FEMA programs, plans, strategies, and initiatives that where things are changing in between our updates, we need to make sure that our policies are consistent. We need to clarify existing requirements and make practical changes to improve our plans for disaster risk reduction outcomes, and also to improve the ease of use. And that includes our review and submission procedures. There are 4 appendices, and for instance, in our state mitigation guide that all refer to basic procedural issues, how to submit the plans and the timing and other tools and templates. So those are important to keep updated as well. And then finally, I want to emphasize that there have been no changes to the regulations since the previous policy updates. Okay, so this is basically an image to show the policy update process. Right now, we are in the stage of stakeholder and partner engagement. So we want to solicit feedback and ideas from all of our partners as we begin to draft the document. So the next stage following stakeholder engagement will be writing and development and preparing this draft policy update, both for the state and local policies. And when that is complete, the documents will need to go through program review in our Federal Insurance and Mitigation Administration and our directorate, and then all the way through the agency. There are many other agency components that need to review the policy and comment, and we need to ensure that we are aligned and we understand all the impacts to other programs. Finally, when we finish the document, we will release that. There will be a specific release date, and we will make sure everyone's aware. We'll provide webinars, possibly webinars nationally, possibly regionally, and other dissemination and education opportunities. And the policy actually becomes effective 1 year from the release date. So that gives us the time to roll the information out to everyone and time to prepare for when that policy actually becomes effective. So I'm going to talk a little bit about state mitigation planning. As we talked about before, the state mitigation plan review guide interprets 44 CFR Part 201. Section 201.4 and Section 201.5. And it includes a set of guiding principles, the mitigation planning responsibilities, as I discussed in the previous slide, the standard state requirements, planning process, hazard identification and risk assessment, mitigation strategy, mitigation capabilities, review, evaluation, and implementation, and adoption and assurances. It also covers the requirements for enhanced plans, and that includes enhanced planning requirements and HMA grant management requirements. And finally, submission and review procedures, as I mentioned earlier. So examples of areas that we will be reviewing as we begin to look at the update process. Well, I mentioned the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities the BRIC program earlier. We'll also, another program example is the National Mitigation Investment Strategy. This was released last August to bring all national stakeholders involved in disaster resilience, including federal, state, tribal, territorial, local, and private organizations, and the public together to invest in mitigation. And so we want to make sure that our policies are consistent in referencing this strategy and aligning with the strategy. And also in 2019, Congress appropriated funds to award grants for the rehabilitation of high hazard potential dams. And there is a mitigation plan requirement related to this program. So there is a need to incorporate a policy around this requirement within our hazard mitigation plan review guide. Also, we'll look at standard state requirements, but we'll also pay special attention to the enhanced requirements. Several states submitted plans for enhanced status over the past few years. We've learned some lessons. We want to make sure we have good consistency and that expectations are clear. And also that would include the review of the HMA grants management requirements. So, and as I mentioned before, the procedural aspects of planning. So submission, review, and approval procedures, processes for enhanced mitigation plan, review panels, and other tools and templates such as approval letter templates and the plan review tool. So we have several resources, and I really encourage you all to look at all of these. Definitely look at the plan review guide. And we have a set of mitigation planning key topics bulletins for states. These documents are actually more targeted for plan development as opposed to just reviewing for compliance. These provide various approaches for how to meet the requirements as well as develop an effective plan, and they're organized according to those plan sections, for instance, the planning process and the mitigation strategy. And Mitigation Ideas is a great resource. It provides a lot of ideas and suggestions for mitigation actions and projects, and those are organized according to hazard. And we do have a new training, IS 329, for state hazard mitigation planning. And that also can be an in-person training, but we're trying to evaluate how we will do that given our current conditions. So we'll continue to explore that, but definitely take a look at the independent training available through EMI. And Planning for Resilient Communities, which focuses on land use planning and the community planner's role in hazard mitigation. And this on our website, fema.gov/hazard-mitigation-planning, you'll see this link for state mitigation planning resources, where you'll find all of this information in one place. So now I'm going to turn it over to Laura to talk about local mitigation planning.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you all for joining us today. As Kathleen mentioned, my name is Laura Duff, and I'm a mitigation planner with FEMA headquarters. I am also supporting the work surrounding the update of the Local Mitigation Plan Review Guide. The Local Mitigation Plan Review Guide interprets the language and intent outlined in Chapter 44 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 201.6. CFR is a congressionally approved code that covers a large body of laws that govern federal practice. In 44 CFR 201.6 specifically talks about local mitigation planning requirements. Although the regulations in the CFR are not changing, we welcome all comments and suggestions for effective execution of the CFR requirements under the plan review guides. The Local Mitigation Plan Review Guide, or Local Guide for short, outlines guiding principles and requirements for local hazard mitigation plans. The guide also provides submission and review procedures for local mitigation plans. The local guide was last updated in 2011, and like the State Mitigation Plan Review Guide, we are seeking your input on what's working and what isn't with the local guide so we can update the policy to be more effective for emergency managers, planners, and other partners in mitigation. The National Mitigation Planning Program has tools, resources, and training to assist you in developing or updating your mitigation plans. And as was earlier mentioned, we have not started the writing or updating process, but there are several areas where we've heard recommendations in the past for areas of review. These areas include bringing the local guide in alignment with the state guide to match up guidance, language, and procedures across guidance. We have heard feedback on addressing climate and future conditions in local hazard mitigation plans. Planners have also mentioned that the plans can feel siloed, so we are looking at how we can better connect required elements to support a more cohesive and actionable product. The planning team is reviewing the guide for clarity and language to ensure that we are conveying information and plan requirements as clearly as possible. We are also looking at the overall formatting of the document, and we welcome input on both content and usability. As was mentioned, we have several tools and resources to assist you in updating or developing your mitigation plans. Following the policy update, we will be bringing these in alignment with the changes made in the guides. These resources include a local mitigation planning handbook that walks the user through the process from beginning to end to ensure that you're not only getting something that meets requirements, but creating something that is useful for you and your community. We also have Mitigation Ideas, a resource for reducing risk to natural hazards, which is a resource of a range of potential mitigation actions that could be potentially replicated in your community. These and many other mitigation planning products are available on our website. Training is also available for local planners, such as the Local Planning Workshop and Mitigation Planning for Local and Tribal Community courses. These courses cover the fundamentals of mitigation planning requirements for communities. The trainings include an overview of the requirements for the planning process and developing effective mitigation strategies. They also cover the basic elements of the plan review, approval, and update cycle of planning. FEMA also offers Planning for Resilient Communities training. This workshop provides an overview of the mitigation planning process and discusses the role of community planners in risk reduction. The course covers how planners and community officials can facilitate the planning process, assess existing and future vulnerabilities, evaluate community capabilities, and identify potential solutions. All our mitigation planning training and resources links are available on FEMA.gov. Additional training opportunities are available on FEMA's Emergency Management Institute, or EMI, website, as well as from your local FEMA regional office. Back to Kathleen for sharing ideas and comments.
Thank you, Laura. So this is your opportunity to provide your thoughts, ideas, and feedback on the mitigation planning policies. We will be collecting feedback via email at the email address that is listed on this slide. We will be collecting feedback through this dedicated inbox through August 14th. Also, we encourage you to sign up for Gov delivery notifications, where we will keep everyone apprised of our progress. And once we have collected all of this feedback, we will summarize and share it. All of this will be taken into consideration as we draft our updates. And we would like to encourage all of you to spread the word to your peers and encourage them to provide feedback as well. And as always, contact your regional mitigation planner for information as well. So we really appreciate your participation and your attendance today, and we look forward to receiving your feedback. And here are some handy website addresses for you. And thank you very much.